Let's talk about the theory of the left. In fact, we have somebody, an expert on the theory of the left of what causes crime, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was on The View, and they asked her what she meant by defunding the police. This is cut 15.
I think that a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America, which I support, which is this. We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street, instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to health care regardless of how much money people have. That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities. And so we really do need to understand and reimagine what and how we can actually make and help make communities safe.
I just want to point out, by the way, that every time Kamala Harris uses the word conversation, that's when she starts lying. It's a tell. It's what in poker they call a tell. You know, people have these little things they do that reveal whether they have a good hand or not. And her tell is she uses the word conversation. That's when she starts lying. Also, when her mouth is moving, that's the other time she starts lying. But conversation is her tell. All right, so she says the problem isn't police. See, this is the funny thing. This was their theory in the 60s. These were their exact same bad idea theories in the 60s. This was what led to the crime wave that made the 70s, 80s, and 90s intolerable in cities until they brought in not just more police, they brought in integrated police that look more like the neighborhood, so they brought in more black cops, more cops of color. They brought in CompStat, which was a way of looking at where the crime was. They brought on-site hotspot policing, so they would go and flood the places where the crime was with police. And they brought in quality of life policing, so that they didn't have broken windows policing, it's called, so that if there were little crimes like graffiti and breaking windows, they stopped the vandalism, because that helped bring down the general crime, because it made the neighborhood look more livable and a better place to be. So all of that stuff they did in the 70s and in the 80s and 90s, when finally Giuliani came into New York, transformed it. And this is what they now call, what do they call it? They call it mass incarceration. It wasn't mass incarceration. It was arresting people for committing crime. Listen again, though, to what Kamala Harris says, where things are better and why they're better. This is cut 16.
Here's the bottom line. If you contrast, many communities which have a heavy presence of police to middle and upper middle class suburbs in America, you will not see that presence of police. But what you will see families who have an income that allows them to get through the end of the month. You will see good public schools. You will see people who have access to health care and can afford it. You will see people who have jobs. And so this has to be the conversation.
So why isn't there more crime in the suburbs? Because the people have jobs, because they have families who care about the public schools. They have families. They have mothers and fathers. They live in a different way. It's the behaviors that create the crime. And listen, I am not blaming poor people for the problems of being poor. There are real problems in being poor. You can't just be one of these conservatives who says, oh, if you just get an education and get married and don't have kids out of wedlock, everything will be fine. If your mom's a crack, your dad, you've never seen your dad, it's hard to do that. It is really hard to live in these neighborhoods. But you can't just go in and give people money and give people things and give them housing and expect them to change their behavior. That is what the left has been doing all this time. That's why the economy crashed, because they were giving loans to people who couldn't pay them back. All of this time, you have got to, here's a thought. What if we had a society that promoted religious ideas that were friendly to families and good behavior, and then we had a political system in which people could build their own businesses and keep their own money and make their own decisions? We could call it Christian capitalist America. What a concept. What a concept. When the left comes up with that concept, I will become a leftist.